pandemic, endless wars, poison food, death, suffering, disease, inflation, gas prices, food prices, job losses, gangs, fake elections, fake news, Enough! Who are you? Made in the image, sons of God. You are the temple, greater things than I, that they may be one. Belief has healed you, I will be with you. The Holy Spirit will come, heaven is within you, the kingdom is at hand, I am. Remembering who we are. Together. Purple Pill Podcast.
There is a fifth dimension, beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the Twilight Zone.
We're back. Hey, everybody. Purple Pill Podcast. This is the show where we suspend our beliefs on what was and what is, and we use our imagination on what is and what could be in order to transcend the Matrix, hack the 3D, and finally exit the Truman Show. And we have a special guest today. We got Jonah Rogers from Book of Jonah on Instagram. He's a popular spiritual influencer on there. And I've been following his account for, I think, 2 years or more. I initially found him on TikTok. And he's in studio with us today, and we're so happy to have him. Hi there, Jonah.
Hi, thank you for having me. After our fourth run-through, 3 reschedulings, a fire, we're finally making it. Let's do it.
Oh, my goodness. Yes, you know, your Instagram is so influential in my experience, where I can talk to a lot of people. I can talk to Tim about my awakening. I can talk to a couple other friends, my brother. But there's some subjects and some context and some details that I just have to keep to myself, because I'm afraid they just won't understand, right? For lack of a better term. I'm not afraid, but I just figure, you know, these are some thoughts that I should probably just keep to myself. And when I came across your profile on TikTok initially, I just felt heard, seen, and I just felt connected to you in a deep way. And you were there for me in that mode many times when I was just kind of, is anyone ever going to really understand this? You know, what's happening? And you really grounded me, and I just appreciate that so much.
And I thank you for that. It's a strange journey when you start to awaken and question truths that you've been told your whole life. And I initially tried to talk to my family, and they can see a passion and a spark in your eye that they know you're not lying, because authenticity, you can't fake the funk. They see they know what you're saying. They know you're not lying, right. But it doesn't resonate with the things that they've gone through in their lives, and they can't see it because their eyes aren't open to it yet. So it's such a lonely experience. And that's, you know, I had this calling that I had to start sharing my journey, because I figured a lot of people have had this same type of journey, and I didn't really hear anybody describing things in that way. And the best way I try to put it is that all of us have been waiting to hear a combination of words our entire life to make life make sense, because what we were taught, whether it was school, religion, politics, none of that jived. We had to go down this path of like, okay, questioning things. And so now we're all finding each other. It's a frequency that we're reaching, that we're connecting. Like, you know, I'm in Newport Beach. I was just in Washington State. I didn't even think I'd be back in California at this time. Walking down the street and then standing there at a place called Cruisers, and got the 001 hat on, and you came up and you said the code and you started talking about gematria, and I was like, oh, that's I know you, brother.
You gave me a big hug.
Yeah.
You really remind me, your energy, your frequency really reminds me of my Tim and I's best friend, George Croker. He passed away when he was 25, and he was the first person in my friend group that was kind of transcending the cultural beliefs of the time. Even as just a teenager, like, he was saying he's not going to get a driver's license. Meanwhile, we're all can't wait to get a driver's license. And he was saying, well, I'm not going to get a regular job. Meanwhile, we can't wait to make some money and be able to do what we want and move out of our parents' house. And he had these really esoteric reasons for it all that we couldn't exactly follow. And he would go to these underground libraries and get these books on the controllers and, share them with us and stuff. But they were so underground, we were just going, whoa, So, and then to be here now and to be at this level of the awakening, right? So it started at 9/11 for me, really, was when I was like, I really got to start paying attention. And then you learn about the controllers and all their different schemes. And then it kind of goes from there until you hit a wall, right? I hit a intellectual wall, and you hit a wall physically, right? And then we both just kind of transcended that whole thing. So quick background. So Jonah was born in Texas and was a successful businessman and got into bodybuilding and was arm wrestling. Isn't that right? Competitively?
No, it was actually at Oktoberfest in Houston. It was a festival, and then went on stage in front of 500 people, snapped my humerus, had 2 bone infections, 12 surgeries, and then one of the surgeries, a different version of me came back. It was really like this, and it was an out-of-body experience, and you get to see the other side. And I always try to compare it to like plant medicines, and there's a euphoric feeling when you cross over that, one, you don't die when you actually die, that you just go to another place. 2 is that you are important. Most of our lives, we kind of felt like royalty, or could have been royalty in a previous life. You could work a regular job and you still feel like the boss, even though you're not in charge. It's a strange feeling when you had more to do and more work to do in life. And so now that we're all kind of connecting again, that's how my journey began. Like the real awakening was after that arm break.
Yeah, you had that out of body. And so then you come back, you're a different Jonah, like you said, and you have to explain these things, or you're talking different, you're making different decisions. And, people, your loved ones, your friends, your friend group, your circle, they start, I'm sure, asking you questions. What was it like to break it to your, kind of get your family involved, your friends involved? Did any drop out? Did any
I don't talk to my family at all. And it's not, recently I spoke to my mother a few times, but they are, they were kind of awakened in the political way. And I'll say this, in that they saw Donald Trump, like they were very much pro Donald Trump at that time. And I'm in conservative Christian Houston, Texas, and I'm being fed everything from the media. And I'm saying like, this guy's not good, and like this and that. It took me a while to get out of the liberal mindset. Sure. And not that, there's levels to this thing. So there's no side. But at one time I was super left, and I'm like, nah, after you start seeing things in COVID and all these things, like, nah, that's not the way. But then I can't be all the way right. And then you start to see it's really the same thing. It's if you're extreme anything and you're not in the middle. So they had already kind of broken free in the sense of business owners, entrepreneurs. When I started talking about the Matrix, they looked at me goofy, and my stepbrother was like, who cares if we live in the Matrix? I'm still gonna be a billionaire. I'm still gonna,
Right.
They're very big on the Tony Robbins motivational things. Watch the Secret documentary. They've always been into the breath work, and
that's legit.
Yeah, you can hack this system. There is a system. You don't have to be all the way spiritual. If you just know the esoteric secrets, you can still plug in.
So the control system, the Matrix, the controller. So everything has a consciousness, as you know, right? If you were ever bonded to your first car, Tim and I had a first car, Little Blue. If I say that to you right now, I mean, it just conjures up almost like a child, right? Like a person, right? And that was my first car. We did so many adventures in that thing. And so, and when you're a small child, you have your blanket, right? Or your little doll that you like. And as you get older, there's still other little trinkets that you collect or you hold on to that make you feel comfortable, right? So that's because anything we create, anything we imprint from our energy comes alive. There's nothing we can create that isn't alive on some level. And so when you take that into account, it would make sense that, these things are going to, the computer just glitched out when we tried to record this thing. And so there's imprints of other consciousness on other things as well.
Every single thing is energy. And this is a lot of times when I talk to people about electronics, I mean, a lot of my downloads come through electronics, whether it be through alerts and things like that. You're right. The consciousness sits there. And so it's understanding that energy. And then how do I use this, whether it's dark or light? How do I use this to level up in some way?
Yeah. One of the big things that on TikTok that really started hitting with me was your use of the numbers. And part of my download was, if you look at the Bible, all the books have a title. And so if the ancient scriptures is God talking to you, right, then it would make sense that the titles are the ways he talks to you. So one of the titles is Numbers. And so obviously he talks to you with numbers. And another title is Psalms, which translates to songs. He talks to you through songs. How many times you've been somewhere and just that song, you were thinking of something, that song hits you, walk in the store, whatever it is, and it's really speaking to you, right? So he talks through songs. He talks through numbers. And so then, and you start off with the angel numbers, which are huge. We got one today right before you showed up, right? Mm-hmm. Or on your way here, a couple of them, 222, 22. And so when I saw your TikTok and you were kind of decoding it for me, you were like, hey, what street did you grow up on? Pop that in the geometry. And you gave me the website that I use to this day, right? Geomatrix or Matrix. Anyway, we'll get into it. But so I started doing that. License plates I see, the first street I lived on, all these different things. And sure enough, it would come up and all the right messaging for what I needed to hear right there would pop up. And so it was more synchronicity on how that works. And I saw some other posts that you had in regards to, you'd say, it's some of my favorite posts that you do are, okay, guys, are we ready for the cheat codes, the Matrix cheat codes? This is what I'm getting today. And you're getting a download, actually, of the codes for that day. And you'll say different numbers and things. And so I wanted to ask you, how does that work? Now, I know, I'm assuming it works like affirmations work. You keep seeing the same thing and, you can make that happen. You know what I mean? You believe it. The more it gets in, the more it's embedded in your subconscious. Is that how the numbers work when you're giving us these codes? Should we say it out loud? Should we?
Yeah, you should typically say the codes out loud. I usually give, lately, because our dreams have been so off the chain, I usually give out 2137 as the code to remember your dream. So you say that code 45 times, or you write it 45 times, or you tattoo it. It's just getting you in a space of creation. And how I figured that part out was that the numbers truly don't necessarily matter, is that one day I get really bad allergies. I don't get sick often, but when I do, it's like, I get the NyQuil and I'm just like laid up for 4 or 5 days. And so this particular time I felt the sickness coming on my body and I'm like, okay, hold on. Let me use a code. And this felt like it was going to be, it was going to get really sick. And I used this code, said it 45 times, meditated on it, and it completely went away the next day. And like never had to take medicine, never had to do anything. And then when I looked back at the code, I used the wrong code. Oh, so that showed me that we have the ability. It gets you to train and use your mind to bring these numbers to life. And the Bible, the way I even describe that is like, even if the Bible wasn't true at that time, they have now created a working document that there's never been a more published or sold book in the world history. So we've brought it to life because they know how powerful our minds are. Right. If enough people believe, if enough people read that, because right now we're living in biblical times. Right. So I really understand that part.
You're never not living in biblical times. No. Is what ends up happening. Tim and I have a term we use around here called you can't verify, right? I can't verify your consciousness. Mm-hmm. I can only verify my consciousness at all times with whatever I see. That's how I know that the table that we're sitting in front of has a consciousness, because I can't verify it doesn't. I can only verify I do. So then how does it exist? I can't verify you're making it. Right. I have to just logically assume it's me. That's why when you said earlier, I am you, you are me. And then the master, Jesus, right? So I call him the master here on the show. That's what his disciples called him. He says that he is in me and I am in you, right? And that they may be one. Mm-hmm. And so he thinks, right, that means we're all connected. We're all one, and we're all levels of God through looking through God's eyes. It's just an amazing, it's just an amazing thing to finally wake up and realize that. And what I think has happened is that the controllers have known this the whole time, right? And there's a trend right now going on where a lot of podcasts and media personalities, YouTubes, are talking about Nephilim a lot, right? Nephilim, you hear all this. And so it gets you in kind of a fear state and like you're less than. But if you really look into it, we're made in the image, not the fallen angels, not the angels, not the UFOs, nobody, right? So we're the greatest creation. We're made in the image. We are the sons of God. And so I believe that the controllers know that they can't create reality, right? Only we can. Mm-hmm. And so they have to spend millions of dollars to hire all these people, these journalists to write, because it doesn't matter if you're writing Charlie Brown or if you're writing, Beethoven. Mm-hmm. You're still using that power to create reality. And so they spend all this ink. That's why the papers, they never get rid of the New York Times, even though no one reads it anymore, right? Because they need that ritual in order to keep, that's why we have the 24-hour news, speaking creation. And mm-hmm. each one of us that believes it and takes that code in, we end up creating it for them. So we've created this reality for them. So that's what the Matrix basically is. It's because they got us at the womb, they got us in the school, we trusted mom and dad, they bought in. And so why would anything change if we're constantly treading the same ground all the time, right?
Yeah, it's not, it doesn't resonate with a whole lot of people, but the people that know, when I first started the journey, I say we live in a computer simulated reality. Everything's based off numbers and algorithms, but there is a spiritual component. And Yeshua, or Jesus, was the Michael Jordan of this matrix. Whether he existed or not, which I believe he did, I actually know he did,
right,
is that we've created that character because enough of us believed that a person here could do all these special and spiritual things, and he was here to be love and here to be light.
Yeah.
So understanding that part of it is that, yes, you do create your reality. And I got this download in the car the other day. Do you remember the Never-Ending Story?
Oh, I was thinking about it. I've been thinking about it for about 3 months.
Falcor,
the
Trey,
kids are watching it.
Yeah, I love that movie. I think most of us love that movie.
The twist at the end is nuts.
But so that's the thing, is that here's a kid who was bullied, in the beginning of the movie. He ends up becoming putting himself in the character's role, right? What's so important about our reality and what's happening now is the children, because that's when you are the pure love frequency, because you don't know hate yet unless you're programmed. And then you can also create with your mind. You're a master manifester. So here's a kid who reads a book and the book comes to life, and now he's the character, and he brings it all into the real world. Right. And that's how I really describe our reality. The powers that be, the controllers, our opponent, they know that as well. And so they force feed, and they I was talking to you earlier about, they just released, they're releasing the JFK and the MLK and RFK files, but they're only going to tell us what we want to, not what we want to hear, but what we need to hear. They need
what they want us to believe.
What they want us to believe, exactly. They keep working their side of the script. I almost feel like, tell me sometimes, do you sometimes feel like we're on a game show? Like, do you sometimes feel like the villain has to, he's playing his role to the T, and the hero, we have to play our role to the T. But it's like there's some prize at the end, because it just feels, our reality feels so scripted. It's like every single scene, it's like it's like the C-list actors on here that are playing these roles when you go out in society, like, that shit ain't real. I'm looking at it. This shit looks like there's a director saying, cut, in the background. This kid beats up this kid. It just doesn't jive anymore. Right. So I feel like we're on a game show, and that, and the last part I'll say about this is, like, think about karma. We all have been people maybe weren't proud of at one time in our life, but we saw the light and we said, no, I don't want to be that person anymore. If you're going to be a villain, if this is a video game and you chose a character before you came, you have to commit to that character, because why does it feel like the bad guy never loses here?
Right.
There's no karma, because the sociopath doesn't believe he's doing anything wrong. So in your reality, if that's not wrong, there's nothing to pay back. Sure. It's the same thing on the good. But where you get in trouble is when you're in the middle. When you're good sometimes, bad sometimes, then you get the karma.
The universe wants you to commit.
That's it. You commit. You're going to be a villain, be all the way villain.
Yeah. It was really good that you said the master, right? Jesus, he's the Michael Jordan of the Matrix. And, if we were going to learn basketball and we had an opportunity to practice with Michael Jordan or have him be our number one, our teacher for 10 years, our whole life, I mean, why would we not choose Michael Jordan? And so in that same respect, much respect to all the spiritual masters. The thing that kind of differentiates the master from the others is that, whether it's Buddhist and you have to jump through so many hoops, you have to attain something. Jesus was one of the first ones, probably the only one, to come along and go, no, you're ready right now. This is who you are currently. There's no hoops to jump through. You are the Son of God. Okay. He says, you are the sons of God and you will do greater things than I. So if we're not doing greater things than him, then something's glitched somewhere, right? And so that really sets him apart is that he just gives you the authority right now. There's a great scripture in Luke, and I never saw this before, and I've been reading the Bible my entire life. And it says, I have given you, and this is Jesus talking, words in red, okay? So the Michael Jordan. And he says, I have, Luke 10, verse 19, I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you. And this isn't the only requisite is believing these words are true.
Right.
I have given you, so Michael Jordan's given you the authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power, not some of the power and not sometimes, all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you. And if we go back to the idea that I can't verify, who is he talking to? He's talking to the person reading it.
100%.
And how can it not be written to you?
100%.
When you're the one reading it right now. There is no, past and the future all exist at the same time. Yep. All you have is right now. So who is that talking to?
He's talking directly to you.
Exactly.
And I had to, when you learn these things of nothing and no one can harm you, then you'd probably live your life a little bit differently. I got past the fear-based timeline and the fear of death 3 years ago when and then even going on this journey, you start to question things at times. And writing these scriptures, he knows that once you reach a certain frequency, like the most dangerous person in the Matrix is somebody who is beyond all fear because they know everything's going to be okay, especially death, and somebody who's, got past the programming. And the Bible will literally reference any part of life. It's all parables that you can apply to your life, and it is you. You are the Christ. You are Yeshua incarnate. Whatever information finds you, it's because it was supposed to. And this is just confirming what we already know.
And we can confirm that. Now, to a listener going, well, he's saying where Jesus is saying this. No, what we're saying is, don't believe Jonah, right? Don't believe Cody. You can believe him. He says, the Father is in me and I am in you. Okay, he also says, I am the light, you are the light. Who's the light? You are. Who's the light? He is. And he's inside you. So how can you not be him? Right?
Right.
And so when you think of the second coming, this is part of my download was he is coming, right? But he's coming through you. He's going to come through you. And then the church will tell you, well, we're his hands and feet, right? Well, if we're his hands and feet and the Father's in him and he's in me, well, then what the heck are we talking about? Then how come I can't say that he is, how come I can't walk that way? How come I can't take that? He says I have the authority. He says he's in me. And then he says we're sons of God. And then he says you're going to do greater things than I. So it doesn't get any more. I mean, that's unbelievable. That's incredible. How empowering is that?
It's almost, and that's prophetic in itself of knowing this timeline, because he predicted when he was going to transcend death at the age of 33. So he's talking to us now. Yes, we will do more greater things because we now have a bigger reach. We have the connectivity. We can use our voices. And then now, when enough people, it's not even it's gone past belief for me. It's a knowing.
Yeah, it's
you
a knowing.
know.
Yeah,
when you
I use
know,
that a lot.
it's into the core, every fiber of your being. Then nothing or no. There you go. Nothing or no one can harm you. Then you've essentially reached the Christ consciousness, and that's where
which
we
is
wanna be.
great. Okay, I want to touch on that too, because the church likes to, or mainstream religion in general, likes to say, what would Jesus do, and be more like him, right? But then they use this, if we use the term Christ consciousness, which is the same thing, what would Jesus do? Putting yourself, acting and speaking and trying to be more like him. That's all that means. That means what would Jesus do, but you're actually embodying it now. And see, what happened was the control. Okay, so like I told you, part of my download was this is happening to millions of people, right? It's been happening for a long time.
We're all becoming Jesus.
Yeah. And so the furthest, I'm sure there's other points in time when this also happened, but there was a huge blow up of Holy Spirit spiritual awakenings in the 1900s, 1900 to about 1940. And I've got a couple of the books up here I was going to share with you. And if you've never, I was going to, you know what, I've got to give these to you because I can just buy them again. But anyway, I was at a friend's house, those little, they say it's like a book thing in front of people's houses, and you open it and there's just free books in there. Mm-hmm. I went in, usually it's just, romance novels. But anyway, I was called to open it, and this book was in there. This Thing Called You by Ernest Holmes.
Okay.
All right. And he's just this little guy. He didn't write a lot, okay, but he wrote this book. And you can open up to just about anywhere, and it's just incredible. Here's chapter 10, just who loses his life shall find it. Since the whole teaching of Jesus was that God is life, he could not have meant that you should actually lose your life, but that you should let go of the lesser in order to experience the greater. That is not a bad bargain. If you lose a sense of unhappiness, you'll become happy. Right? If you don't believe in unhappiness, right? If you lose a sense of confusion, you will be at peace. If you could become more consciously and subjectively aware, even for one moment, of your true spiritual perfection, there would come such a conversion of your mind as instantly to heal your physical body. And that's just this, okay? And this is written in 1920.
I think I have a theory that people were way more awake and conscious than they are now because there's so many traps. There's more of us awake now, but they were able to tap into more then because there was less 5G towers, there was less obstacles, less shiny toys.
I'm gonna do it. Here's one called A Course in Miracles, nice book. This is made back then too, okay?
Somebody just asked me about this book the other day.
Okay, well, it's unbelievable, dude. You can okay, listen to this one here. Look at this. Every response to the ego is a call to war, and war does deprive you of peace. Yet in this war, there is no opponent. This is the reinterpretation of reality which you must make to secure peace, and the only one you need ever make. Those whom you perceive as opponents are part of your peace, which you are giving up by attacking them. How can you have what you give up? You have to share. You have to share to have, but you do not give it up yourself. When you give up peace, you are excluding yourself from it. This is a condition which is so alien to the kingdom that you cannot understand the state which prevails within it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened was in the 1900s to about 1940, the Holy Spirit was awakening all these people. And okay, now these two authors that know nothing of each other.
Right.
But each one, it's like 98% accurate. And then it goes with the New Testament and the words in red of the Master himself. Mm-hmm. It's all 98% accurate, okay? All right, so we have this happening. And the controllers know that the Holy Spirit is going to do. They read the Bible too. Mm-hmm. And when Jesus says, I'm going to send you the Holy Spirit who will bring you knowledge of all things, they know that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. They just don't know when, what it's going to look like. So they get a little inkling of this, right? Mm-hmm. And what they do is they set up a counterfeit version. And so they set up, so right after these people, there was Alice Bailey and Aleister Crowley, which you've probably heard of, okay? And what they did was, they're all spooks and involved in the CIA and Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard that made NASA and all this stuff. So they were given characters, and what they did was they wrote their own books, and they took a little bit of this and a little bit of this, and they wrote their own book. And then what they did was they linked it to Lucifer, and they linked it to demons and Satan, so that the Matrix could have a straw man. So if you were at home and you had a spiritual awakening like I did, or you had the out-of-body experience, and you came back with any of this knowledge, then you would go to your mom, who goes to church every Sunday like a good person, right? And she goes, well, it sounds like, you're being talked to by devils. But you see how they muddy the waters like that? And that's purposeful. Even to this day, I'll have people reach out because of the show, and they'll go, oh, no, I think you're talking about demons because Aleister Crowley, and I already know they're going there.
Yeah.
And then when they say the name, I go, well, that's the straw man that they built in order to smear and confuse the whole situation. And so that's a huge thing that they do.
Yeah, whenever I hear people say aliens or demons, I just immediately think that they're just not evolved enough to be. It's a program. I understand that. I don't even fight back anymore. I'm like, okay,
either do I, if they want to believe it. I try a little, and then if I see that it's just that's their belief, there's nothing you can do.
There is nothing you can do. Understanding occultist knowledge and secrets, you can go to the Freemasons, to all these occultist organizations. They're given this, the Egyptian, just say for example. Yeah. So all these things have already been prophesied. You can look at the remote viewing side of things.
Yeah, I like remote
or the
viewing.
psychics.
Yeah.
They were already able to see the future, and they knew this was happening. So they had to create, like you said, their straw man, and they had to create something to just divert you just enough off the path, because again, that whole stigma, even the word alien was just used against brown people in the 1930s and 40s to make you fear your neighbor.
Right.
Like people, they're going to come and they're going to take our country and things like that. So when I hear things like this, Aleister Crowley, he was tapped into a lot of esoteric. Like I've seen some of his things.
Yeah.
And they have the same, it's all your interpretation, In gematria, Jesus and Lucifer have the same value, 444.
Sure.
Okay? It's kind of the same. It's polarity, right? So when you understand that, I always say it this way, in the Christ story, in the Antichrist story, the Christ is the Antichrist. And some people think this way, some people think that way. But how do we get each other to say, hey, man, we're the same, man?
If you're the devil, then Jesus is your enemy, right?
Right. That's it. But it's such, when you reach certain levels of consciousness, we all understand that we have the dark and the light inside of us. And we're here for the ancestors. We're here going through these experiences to, like, when I see people super programmed and get stuck on race and religion and these other things, it's all meant to divide us.
They don't want you to come together and realize you're sons of God.
No.
And that we're the battery.
No.
That, you know what I mean? They don't want you to realize that. That is their worst nightmare. Because
that's right.
As soon as we realize it's
right,
and this matrix overlay goes away, and what's underneath the overlay? The kingdom of heaven.
Right.
The master, he says straight up, and we know he's not a liar.
Right.
So he says, if anyone ever tells you that heaven is over here, over there, or up there, he even says that, up there, because he knows that organized religion is going to say it's up there.
Of course.
So he makes a point to go, if they tell you it's up there, I tell you no.
Right.
I tell you it is all around you, and it is within you, and it is among you.
Right.
And he's not lying. And so the opposite is also true, right? So if heaven is within you and all around you, then so is hell.
Right.
Right? Depending on what you believe.
Right.
And so if we just believe him, because look, I've already believed the Matrix, and look where that got me. Right. You know what I mean? Like, we've already tried that. We've already tried the hate. Right. We've already tried the battling. Right. We've already tried all these different things. So how many times, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And so there's no stopping them with their own rules. Right. The only way to stop them is with his rules, is with these rules, is with the spiritual masters, whether you want to go Buddhist or Hindu or Muslim, it doesn't matter. If you do the rules, which is love your neighbor, love your God, and love yourself, then this matrix overlay will go away because we have the authority. That's honestly, it's the name of the game. And throughout this journey, I spent 3 months in Sri Lanka. It's Buddhist and it's Hindu. I spent time in Israel and Palestine, and so it's Jewish and Muslim. I spent time in the UK, very Christian. I spent all the time, like, it wasn't intentional, let me say that, but I've been walked on this path to see they're all telling you the same thing. The
they put it almost feels like they're plants inside of the religious organizations to again just steer you just enough off the path because they're not following the precise teaching. So I understand that, but it's just about following the rules. Right. Once you see, even the Buddhist part was the most eye-opening to me on this journey, because they talk a lot about Mother Earth. The Earth is us too. Like the Earth is ascending in 5D too.
Right.
You talk about obviously the animals, like the birds, the trees, the flower. Everything is us. Everything is God. And they talk about energy, frequency, vibration, like Tesla. I mean, Buddha existed 2,600 years before Jesus. You talk also a lot about reincarnation. That if you don't pass, you got to come back and play the game again. And then soul contracts. That your mom's not your mom, your dad's not your dad. You're all playing different roles in your life. In a past life, your mom could have been your daughter. It goes. That's how you basically play the game. But when Jesus incarnated and Yeshua, this was like the great time in like the mesh point in history, right? Okay, we realized the darkness is coming. It wasn't as dark back then, I believe, as it is now, because now it's just the darkness is really the mind and the world that we create.
Right.
If you believe and subscribe to those things, then you're gonna make it appear.
Right.
When you don't believe in it, it doesn't exist. So understanding that he saw all of these things, he chose to hop in as God right now in that time in history, and then we're still teaching his principles. He really, really understood it. But if I did a little research, 200 years after he died, Paul is the one who came in and started teaching about worship and worshiping idols and worshiping. And that's really where the path veered off, because once you start worshiping somebody externally and not you, if you understand that there's a difference.
Well, there's no way you can't not worship God, because we're sons of God. So this whole idea that Paul, started this, a God that's outside of us, when Jesus clearly said he's within us.
That's right.
So I struggled with that too for some time, and very recent, by the way. So I found that there were two gospels, and there clearly is. Jesus teaches the gospel of the kingdom, which we call 5D in the present day. And it's an amazing gospel, and it's for people like us who've had the spiritual awakening. And so then I was really struggling with where Paul was, and I started to throw the baby out with the bathwater in regards to Paul. And then Holy Spirit would lead me to points with Paul, and he was talking like us. Mm-hmm. And so I went, well, gosh darn it here. Now something is up, right? Holy Spirit keeps leading me back to him, doesn't want me. I heard clearly, now hold on, hold your judgment on Paul, please. We're going to get to it later. You're not there yet. I think it was probably just about 6 months ago that it came to me, and I'm about to share it with you, okay? So there is two gospels. That's true. And the one is for us, right? This disciple walked alongside of him, already had the spiritual awakening. And then Paul's gospel is for the prisoner, is for the MS-13 that's killed 10 people in Guatemala. Now he's in prison for life. The Paul gospel is for the people that lack morals, that are really down on themselves and the world, because Paul was in a time where he was trying to convert Rome, and they had like 10 different gods. Everyone was getting taxed up the wazoo. Nothing was going. You had to do these things. You had to sacrifice a goat. You had to sacrifice children at some point. All kinds of weird things were going on. What he did was he went in there and said, okay, look, here's the basics. If you just say this guy's name and you just believe these things, life will start to change. And we both know that there's power in that, right? We've seen our grandma do it. We've seen our friends do it. They're mainstream Christians, but their prayers are effective, right? All of ours are, right? Because every word we say, everything we write is very powerful. It doesn't matter. We are all sons of God, whether we realize it now or not. So when they say that prayer, that's the best they could do at that time. The MS-13 member doesn't have time to get in this. He's going to throw it. This is woo. This is too woo for him, right? Mm-hmm. But he can get in, because maybe his grandma, or he had Jesus is a very powerful name in that way. And so you say that name and you do it with that type of intention, and stuff starts happening, right? And so that's where you have to begin, and you have to believe in and that guy needs to fear something other than himself, because he doesn't fear nothing, right? He's a psychopath. So he needs to fear that there's a hell at that time. He needs to believe the fire and brimstone story at first to get on board,
right? To
understand morals, to get to understand between good and evil, to bite the apple and understand the difference between good and evil, so we can become as gods, as was talked to us in Scripture in Genesis. And so that's what that gospel's for, if I could help you with that. So Paul is for that.
Right.
And then when you graduate from that, you get over to the kingdom, and it's Jesus's gospel, and then he gets rid of the whole Satan thing. For instance, he calls Peter, who is the cornerstone of his church, right? So he calls Peter Satan when he's being arrested, because Peter pulls out a sword and tries to stop the soldiers from arresting him. Mm-hmm. And Jesus knows that, he has to do this thing. So he goes, get behind, step away, get behind me, Satan, mm-hmm. right? To the point that Peter actually strikes a Roman soldier, cuts his ear off. Jesus comes to the defense of the soldier who's arresting him, calls Peter Satan. Now, he doesn't lie, right? Mm-hmm. So why would he call Peter Satan? Because it was a description of how he's acting and what he's believing in the moment, right? Because he says, fear not. So Peter's saying, fear all that. So he is Satan in that regard. That's how we can tell that it's simply a state of mind.
It's an
not
energy.
An actual entity, right? And then he tells the Roman soldiers, you wouldn't be able to do this if my father didn't give you authority, mm-hmm. right? So, because people would say, back to that Luke scripture, nothing can hurt you, right? Which we both know is true. But they would say, well, he was arrested and hurt, right? But that's only because he gave him the authority to. He consented, mm-hmm. so he could go through this whole act, right? You have to have that villain in order to transcend as an example, right? And so I hope those two things can be reconciled.
Absolutely. I just think of the patterns in my life, and I have been on this biblical journey, and just living life. Like all of my friends typically had biblical names, not even trying. It was just a thing that happened. And Paul was a name that's popped up quite a few times in my life. And Paul was a problem, but Paul was my best friend. And
That's funny.
We have
my Paul's a problem and a best friend too.
But those people activate you. It's not. You have to have some sort of a catalyst to see what's right and wrong. Has to be something to activate you.
Yeah.
So, and I understand that now, but I also understand that even the Pauls need to evolve, because now we're all here at this time. We all chose to be here at this time. Yeah. And so you have the dark, you have the light. We're just two ends of the spectrum that activate. But if we ever came together, it's bye-bye Matrix. And that's my whole goal and my purpose, which I feel is yours too, is that we're bridges. We're bridges between these two worlds of like, I had friends of all colors and friends of this and that.
Yeah.
Like I could see the good in everyone. And so to bring those people together, that biblical script that was originally put out for us, you just see these characters playing out in their roles in life. I was in South Africa, and I stayed at a guy named Jethro's place. Now, have you ever met anybody named Jethro in your life?
No.
We know it from the show.
Beverly Hillbillies.
But his name is Jethro, and that was Moses' father-in-law. And these things I'm finding out later on, and I'm just like, that my mind's blown. I have a staff. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's these things where you really start to piece together your life. You see that even the person that hurts you actually helps you.
That's so good. We're on this journey, and it's just, you say that we're all biblical characters, and I can validate that in some regards. Tim and I have a spiritual master that we enjoy very much, and his name is Neville Goddard. If you've never heard of him, or maybe you've seen some of his stuff around, it's just so beautiful and inspiring, and you can get a lot out of it. I mean, it sounds like this podcast that we're doing right now. Anyway, but his main contention is that the entirety of the Bible is you playing out. You start off as Moses, right? And then at some point in your life, you're Elijah, and then you're Elisha, and then and King David, right? And then you battle the Goliath.
Yep.
Right. And then from there and on and on and on until you get to Jesus, and then you're crucified, et cetera, et cetera. And then you ascend, you live again, which is what you went through. Tim has a experience like that. I have an experience like that. And that's the journey of life for everybody at some point, right? Whether it's, 10 years from now for somebody else, but I'm just happy it's for us right now. And I think that shows like this and what you're doing on social media can really, if it just plants a seed and people are more open to having this experience,
Yeah, how many times have you died? I mean, we talk about the physical death, which you don't, it's not that you necessarily redline on an operating table. That's one thing people need to understand.
Right.
There's levels to death. I always used to describe it. A lot of times, if you used to drink a lot back in the day, you could have drank too much one night where something shifted in your reality. You could have taken too many pills, or even getting into a fender bender, walked away with no scratch, but something changed.
Right. On another timeline, that was a head-on collision.
There,
type of thing.
But you were saved in this reality,
Right.
and a different version comes. So when you evolve so much, and that's the main thing that I think I want to get across to people is that don't be intimidated. When I first woke up, I would see all these. I didn't look for spirituality; it just found me, and I knew that this was me. And
yeah, me too.
You start listening to these people, and you're like, they're so polished, and everybody's so perfect that I'm like, I'm behind in class. Oh my God,
Yeah.
what am I supposed to do? And then, but it was never meant to be that way, because even the fiercest warriors had to start somewhere. So it's just step by step by step. The goal is to evolve. As you take in new information and get new downloads, how can you become a better person? How can you be more light? How can you just light the candle for the next person and the next person and the next person? So, that's the whole thing. It's the evolution of consciousness. We are iPhones in human form that are getting downloads every day, and it's like a new operating system comes in.
Yeah.
Do you want to upload it?
Yeah. And sometimes there's, with the longer we're on this path, at first as these tears of joy and all this, right? But then you've got to start healing the childhood trauma, like you said, and the other podcast that you did that was released earlier this week, what said Acid for Squares, great. You did great, and they're great hosts, good show. I follow them on YouTube as well. But you get these upgrades, and just like with iPhone or your Android device, a lot of good things happen with the new operating system, but then you have a bunch of bumps too, and glitches, man, and new challenges.
Yeah, when you step into it was meant for me to break my arm. When they broke my arm, they had to do a bone graft on my leg, and so they broke my femur. So I was in a wheelchair for a month, and somebody who kept myself busy. ADHD my whole life, you could say. I was always doing things. I never wanted to stop. I ran from my healing. And then all of a sudden I had to face it. And I just sat there and cried, without any plant medicines. And I just sat there and I cried, and I got to reflect on my life. And then it always comes back to, what kind of person did I want to be? What was my mark, or what was I going to leave here? And so when you start to go into it and lean into it, that's where your power comes from, because a lot of unfortunate experiences happen in some of our childhoods, and that was to heal the ancestral trauma and to break the curses. So when you decide to step into that, the universe rewards you with gifts and powers. It's like, okay, you passed this timeline.
Yeah.
Now we're going to give you this.
You're not letting those traumas. Look, we already know for the listeners, we already know from science that the traumas and abuses and even the negative self-talk is passed down through DNA as coded, right? DNA is all numbers, right? So it's passed down. This is all fact now. It's passed down through generations. And that's why you had low self-esteem when you were 5 and 7, because something else happened earlier in your family's ancestry. And we're here to say enough. And remember who we are together, right? I mean, that's what we're here to do.
That's exactly what we're here to do. And if people truly knew their divinity and how important, nobody's above anybody and nobody's better than anybody. We're all equal. If you truly knew that, you would know how important it was to heal yourself, because healing yourself heals past, present, and future versions of yourself. It also heals your family, because it also heals everybody you've ever been connected to. I figured that part out, is that every single person who you've ever had a relationship with, it could have been a 2-week relationship, and it doesn't necessarily mean romantic, but every person you've ever been connected to is you. And so all the work we do, we focus so much on the external and talking to people and things like that. When people want knowledge, obviously we're here to share it, but you can do more for them by healing you, by ascending further, by reading more, by grounding more, by meditating, by tapping into spirit, by fasting. Everything revolves around you. And if everybody treated it that way, because that's really the way it is, if you understand how individually important your healing and forgiveness is, that forgiveness is the hardest piece. Sometimes people have done things that are unforgivable, that you just couldn't wrap your head around. How could I forgive that?
Right.
Right. But if you can, because you can't get to the next level without forgiving it.
Yeah,
If you,
right.
once you understand that, but if you can, it now becomes your superpower. It now becomes that people get so caught up in playing the victim role and the victim mentality. And damn it, I was there for a long time.
Right.
Why is everybody
Yeah, I've been
against me? Why, you know, I was a millionaire and now I'm broke and like, it's all their fault. I blew my money at the casino. No, I had that. There was a point in time in my life when I felt like everyone was using me and that I felt important, but not in the way I wanted to feel important. And so you start to blame things for years on like, you know, I'm eating ramen noodles out of a pack. I used to be, you know, I used to be Mr. Yeah, I used to be Mr. Everything. But we truly gave our power away because I figured that part out too with energy. When you understand that how you make money and how you accumulate money is an energy too. If you're doing things that are low frequency and are low vibration, that's not going to multiply. Your higher self, God, is going to remove that from you. But he wants you to taste those fruits for just a little bit to understand our opponent, our shadow side, is the narcissist, is the person who can't get over their own ego. And it's us. That's us too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's nothing, you know, whatever you experience is your fault.
That's once you can take 100% blame and you say, it's on me, I chose this, it becomes a much more.
As a matter of fact, we tell the listeners that it should, you know, it's a good exercise. To whatever you've just, I don't care if it's traffic for 45 minutes on the 405. If you're getting upset about it, what did you do? Think about how you can find a way. You know, just find a way you can take personal responsibility. And when you do that, you're automatically forgiving all the other things that may have occurred that you thought made that thing happen. Another thing we talk about is Neville Goddard. He talks about this idea of revision. He calls it revision. So healing your past, healing others, you can do this thing called revision, and it works great. You go into your meditation, and you just imagine whether it's an ex-girlfriend or the old bully that you beat the crap out of when you finally get old enough, whatever it was, or somebody you swindled, you know, when you were younger, you didn't know any better, or you did, and you just did anyway. But anyway, you go into your imagination, and you just, you know, you can remember what you were wearing from what the trees look like, you know, you really can't. So you go into your meditation, you conjure up that scene of exactly when you did whatever you did, or someone hurt you, you took it that way, and you just redo the scene in your mind the way it should have been done. And once you do that, and you do that enough, sometimes it can happen the first time, but you'll know, whether it's the 10th time, 20th time, first time, you'll feel it in your heart that is now done. And so what happens is, since we only have right now, that revision happened right now. Mm-hmm. Now that past is changed because you declared it was, and then you imagined it was, right? And then after that, you could even write down what you did. That even triples it. You don't have to do all those things because, again, all the power comes from you anyway, because he is in me and I am in you. All right. So therefore, everything has a consciousness, but the energy you put into it, right? The computer, the car, we talked about that earlier. It's all you ultimately, you know, your crystal bracelets that bring you these different things. Yeah, that all works, but it's because you gave it the power. You gave it the intention. And as soon as you gave it the intention, every time you put it on your skin remembers. Mm-hmm. And then that goes into your subconscious. And so then it's a never-ending loop of love and abundance, and all that just feeds on itself. So just wanted to validate what you were saying on that.
Yeah, that's a way to master the game, is when you can actively do these things that you want to empower. And to go back, you know, what's kind of funny is what you said reminds me of the movie Butterfly Effect with Ashton Kutcher. There was a lot of symbolism in that movie of journaling and then also being able to relive scenes. And so I always say, when you take full control of your conscience at night, a lot of times we get in these skirmishes or these rifts with people, or people hurt us as empaths more than they know. And so if you have beef with somebody, before you go to bed at night, you don't have to ever face that person. You can actually go in the astral realm, set the intention. You have to be really, really tired. And right before you go to bed, you say, I'm going to go meet with Tim. Tim pissed me off earlier. We couldn't get the whatever going.
Yeah, right.
And you say, so you just communicate with your higher self, and you go work it out in that realm. All of a sudden, it works like clockwork, where you can work out problems with people, even you haven't seen people in years. There's certain people that have grudges, or you can't let things go. It's just a way to really tap in further in this reality.
Yeah, and that's validated by the master himself right here in Matthew 6, verse 6. But when you pray, go away by yourself, shut the door behind you, and pray to your Father in private. Then your Father, who sees everything, will reward you. Mm-hmm. Right? So he's not saying, and it goes on to say, don't be like the hypocrites and pray out in public. Mm-hmm. And I'm praying. So, but when you pray, meditate, right? Nothing is not a prayer. That's the other thing. That's another universal law. Everything you do is a prayer because he is in me and I am in you, right? So, but when you pray, go away by yourself. This is a command. This isn't a suggestion. Mm-hmm. We always got to remember that. Go away by yourself, shut the door behind you, and pray to your Father in private. Then your Father who sees everything will reward you, right?
Yep.
So then if we take that command, if we take that universal law, right? So and it's a great time right before bed, you're by yourself. He's just painting the picture of isolating. So you're not influenced, right? So the prayer can be, if you're going to take that much time out to do all that, then you know this is sincere, right? So he's telling you how to set the intention to get this thing moving, as opposed to on social media, you got the fires in LA, everyone's sending thoughts and prayers, but he specifically says, don't do these things in public and be like the hypocrites. Now, why would he say not to do that? Because it doesn't have the right intention, right? Because if you're just doing it because you saw it right in that moment, then how, you know what I mean? It's almost the opposite, where it can validate the tragedy in the sense of it can perpetuate it. I feel so bad for these people, right? And we're all feeling bad. Well, more things are going to happen to feel bad even more, right? As opposed to seeing the suffering, okay, recognizing it, and then going into your room, closing the door. How much more powerful, and then sending the healing and using your revision, using your imagination to extinguish the fires.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
a little more sophisticated.
That's the toughest part, that to get anybody to that level, is that, we understand that there is real world suffering. But the truth is, if you didn't have a cell phone, a television, a computer, you're unplugged from the matrix. That world doesn't exist, because you've now created a reality where it's only love and light, and you're on your highest timeline. When we do plug into that and we do give it energy, it's like saying Satan's name, or saying, I talk a lot about reptilians. When you give things power that are of a negative frequency, you're amplifying and calling that more back in. I don't want to reprogram people. If you have a glass of wine every now and again, okay, cool. But do you feel the need to post it on your story on Instagram? You are now putting out a frequency to say, oh, this is okay to go drink, which it is, but all of a sudden somebody might have got an itch and said, oh, I'm going to go have a glass of wine. I'm not saying good or bad. It's just everything you do is a frequency. So
everything you do is a creation.
And if I program, if you're programming me and I'm programming you, it only has to. I want to give you the most positive, influential timelines versus content, because you can get negativity from anywhere. And let me say this,
from everywhere.
When people say, who do you follow on social media, or these things like this, or who should you trust? We're at the stage now in 2025. If somebody is pushing a fear-based negative, whether it's extraterrestrials, whether it's COVID vaccine shots, whatever, if they keep pushing government, that's the one thing people can't get over. If somebody is pushing fear, there's a difference in raising awareness. But even that is almost like a program of we're manifesting it.
No,
so at this timeline, I'm not saying they're ops or they're the other side. They just haven't evolved enough to know how powerful their voice is.
They're reading the script.
That's exactly right.
They're reading the script the controllers want them to read.
Yep.
There was a post the other day, and when I say the other day, it could be 2 weeks. I just say the other day, but it really resonated with me, and it was you were shooting the chemtrails, and you were saying something about it, but what really stuck with me, and I already knew it was true when I heard it, I was just, it was just more validation. Like I said, you're like my friend in my pocket, my best friend in my pocket, really. And so you were looking at the chemtrails and you go, it almost seems as if we're immune to them. And I've been telling Tim for some time, a big part of the download that I got was, we just read it in Luke, right? I give you authority over the enemy and all of his powers. So one of the things I like to do is, whether it's chemtrails or 5G, or could chemtrails hurt Jesus? Could chemtrails affect Jesus? Could 5G affect Jesus? Right? No, none of them can. And therefore, he is in me and I am in you. Therefore, they cannot affect us either. What's the difference? Belief. I don't believe they can. Why? Because he tells me they can't. Boom, done. That doesn't mean they're not up there. They're
Right.
there. But now I have transcended that fear because he showed me how. That's it. That is the cheat code. Because look, you don't have to believe me. You can believe him.
Right.
And you can believe Buddha.
Right.
Okay. And you can believe all the spiritual masters that tell you how to not give this stuff energy. Don't give this stuff power. So belief is our currency. And the controllers are simply trading it all the time. Right. So you don't, 5G, recognize it, but don't internalize it. That's what we say here on the show. Recognize it. Don't internalize it.
Well, it is a labyrinth of, if the earth is a theme park, there's booby traps everywhere. And the booby traps are really, again, what you give your energy and attention to. So, whereas most of us at one time were complaining to everybody, that was part of the awakening, was seeing that they were spraying the skies.
Right. Oh, for sure.
But at some point, again, when you don't give it power, like I was talking about that, like if I could be somewhere and there wouldn't be spray for 7 days. The moment I would like text somebody and say, dude, they're not spraying.
I know.
They within the hour, and I'm
Let's
like,
go.
oh, come on, man. Are you serious? And then it gets
So
to the
true.
point where they're not doing it, and then I'll think about it, and it's within
Then
the
it
hour.
starts.
And I'm like, okay.
And guess what? Take self-responsibility.
That's-
Thanks a lot,
yeah,
Jonah.
That's on
Thanks
you.
a lot.
But none of this stuff can hurt you. I mean,
No, it can't.
everything that enough. I understand enough now about the collective conscience that certain people that are at a frequency in a certain timeline do have these gifts and abilities. We're all one, but the people who can't move the needle are people that don't believe. It's like magic spells. If you believe, or even manifesting, if you believe you can manifest, you can manifest. You will manifest.
Right.
If you don't believe anything, you're. So for me now, I'm
Let me
just props
show
on the
you
movie
something.
set. It
Tim,
doesn't
pull that
exist.
up. You know what I'm going with this? Pull that up where Jesus goes back to his hometown, and it says specifically. You're just gonna blow your mind, Jonah.
Nazareth?
He goes back to. I believe he goes back to Nazareth, and he. It says it straight in there. It goes, and he couldn't do any miracles because no one in that town believed. I mean, that's monumental. So the Bible says Jesus was finite to a certain extent, right?
Right.
Because the people in the town wouldn't believe, therefore he couldn't perform the miracles. I mean, that's a kryptonite situation.
If the game works off belief, when you pull the Bible to a modern day, the government needs us. We don't need them. It's just they need enough of us to believe the negative timelines to keep the game going.
You know what?
If we don't believe, it doesn't exist.
They crumble.
That's why they throw so many timelines at the wall against us,
Yes.
to try to get us divided.
I call it here on the show. You're gonna love this. It's called I am the great and powerful Oz narrative. I am the great and powerful Oz. I have the red button that can blow up the earth 10 different ways from Sunday. No, you don't. And then Toto pulls the curtain away, and it's just a little weak old man.
Right.
And that's every single thing. They're bluffing, people. The whole thing's a bluff.
Thank you.
The whole thing's a bluff. They can't blow up the world. There is no red button, period. If God said and sent the rainbow that said he's never going to destroy the earth again, what makes you think he's going to let somebody else destroy the fucking earth? It's not going to happen. Everything's a bluff.
I think that should be people's biggest takeaway from this conversation, is that everything is a bluff. It's all about mind. And it goes back to Twilight Zone. And I just recently found it. We talked about a little bit about it earlier. I just watched an episode. Check this out. Season 3, episode 3, right? 33.
Yeah.
In the opening scene, the house number is 333.
No, it
back
isn't.
in, I swear to God, 1961. 1961, an angel number on a house? Come on, bro.
What's going on, bro?
So the premise of this episode was about nuclear. Now think about this. To me, that would be very sensitive after Pearl Harbor
Right.
and after things happen to post this episode.
Hiroshima,
Yeah.
supposedly all this. Yeah.
So to me that would be a very sensitive
Trigger,
topic.
yeah.
So what they did was in this episode they had the radio come on and they said that there's nuclear weapons that are going to be blasting. And one guy in the town that everybody loved it was the only one. He was telling people, he was the conspiracy nut. Okay. He was like, "Hey dog, I got a bunker, man. Y'all better get you a bunker." And I got a bunker. Y'all better get you. So he has the bunker, and then all of a sudden that comes on, and everybody in the town's like, "Hey man, hey," and he's like, "No, I only got enough food and supplies for 3 people, me, my wife, and my son." And so these people are begging him in the lobby, like begging and begging and begging. And so finally he goes, "I can't let you in. I'm sorry." And he runs downstairs and he hurries up and he locks the door and he's in there. And then the whole town keeps coming back and they're like pleading with him to open the door. Finally, the people get angry and they said, "We're going to bust the door down." And they get like some rams or something like that. And they're over here busting the door down. They're fighting each other, beating each other up, squabbling. They said, "Why should you get to go in there? It should be us." And the point I'm trying to make is right when they bust the door down, they come back on the radio and said, "Oh, we're sorry. It's actually not nuclear weapons. It was satellites."
Oh,
Now think about that.
Whoa.
That's 1961. But you see how easy it is to divide the collective conscience. You get people at each other's
Twilight
throats.
Zone?
That's Twilight Zone,
I watched
1961, bro.
him religiously as a child, dude.
I never seen him until recently, and it's
I'm
everything.
gonna rewatch him again too. You know,
It's gonna hit so much
the
different.
intro to our show.
I could
when you did that post, and I knew did he listen to the show and decide? And I'm just going, whoa. You know, I'm like, no way. And then to have that happen,
it's
every
prophetic.
episode too.
Every episode, they had one on gambling. This one really hit me. There's an episode on gambling where you had a bad guy. He was a bad guy in life, and then he ends up dying, but he doesn't think he died, or he kind of or. What's that?
This one's so good.
The gambling one? Yeah, this one I love. He's like, you know, he's a young hot shot or whatever. And so he has like this guardian angel type guy there. And so every day he wakes up, he gets all the women, he goes to the casino, and everything he plays, he wins. He's like, "Damn, I won. And then so he gets the women, they go back to the crib. It's just rinse and repeat. He's drinking, he's living his life up. And then finally one day he gets tired of winning. He's like, "Dude, I can't ever lose. Like, this is kind of getting boring."
Oh.
And so then the guardian angel comes over there and he tells him, he goes, "Man, I didn't think heaven would be like this." Like he goes, "Oh, you're not in heaven." And I was like, "Boom, mind blown."
Oh, you're done.
I know, because it's like
What?
all the bad stuff in society that
Right.
you could do it as much as you want.
Oh no!
I know. I was like,
Dude,
"Oh, that one
no
hit me."
kidding,
That
right?
one got me.
I wanted to speak to that. You know, this you've been doing one. You know what's so funny? How old are you?
44.
I'm 48.
Okay.
So we watched the same cartoons growing up, apparently, because you've been breaking down the cartoons lately, right? G.I. Joe is a big one for me, right? And programming us in a good way.
Yeah.
You know, getting ready to do what we're doing now, right?
Yep.
And showing us the controllers and all their different machinations, right? On how they run the control grid. Whether it's, they have it all in there.
Mind control, weather manipulation.
Yeah.
It blew my mind. I was like, I'm 4 years old when G.I. Joe comes out, but I was, a real American hero and nothing,
yeah. And
knowing is half the battle. I used to say that for years.
It keeps repeating in my mind since I
Yeah.
had this awakening.
Knowing
I'm just
is
like,
half the
holy
battle.
shit, it's just, and so I wanted to speak to that bit. Okay, we touched on, in the last podcast you did too, with Acid for Squares, you had mentioned Kabbalah, and it was a positive. It was good. It was absolute universal truth. Mm-hmm. And so what I want to speak to is, everything can be used for good or evil, right? A gun doesn't shoot people; people shoot people, right? A hammer, right? You build houses with it, but you can also knock someone's head off with it too, right? Mm-hmm. So, and that applies to everything, right? So that applies to Jesus, right? We got the mainstream churches that have used him to persecute other religions, other belief systems. It's totally disgusting, in my opinion. But to make the point that anything can be turned negative, and also anything can be turned positive. And so, you take Freemasons, for example, and Kabbalah, right? And gematria. All these things are meant for our good, right? Because the scriptures tell us all things are meant for, I turn all things for your good. It also says that nothing was made that wasn't made. It also says that he creates the dark and the light. So in that respect, everything you're going to experience is going to be for your good, whether it looks like bad or whether it looks whatever way you're going to interpret it, right? So he's crucified. It looks horrible. I mean, it's horrible. Yet we needed that to happen. He needed the villain, right? Peter could have stopped him. He told him to get behind me, Satan, right? So he let it all happen. You got to have these things. And so, a lot of people in the podcast world, YouTube's conspiracy theorists, they hit the Freemasons a lot, okay? And the Freemasons, quick background on that was just they were given the secrets to the kingdom to guard against them. And what is it? It's just knowledge, the knowledge that we're talking about right now. This is the kingdom gospel. This is the knowledge they're meant to guard.
Right.
Well, at some point, they were infiltrated, just like everything's infiltrated, okay? But you got to have the dark and the light. And so you have the Freemasons that make movies, okay, and they write books, okay? But you also have Freemasons that are on the white hat side too. There is good Freemasons that are still, they're not guarding the knowledge anymore. They're giving the knowledge. They're providing validation as you awaken through the Holy Spirit. They're going to provide validation through your G.I. Joe. Right now, there is more fear narrative cartoons and movies than there is positive. But the fact that you have an ET phone home, right, and you have a the Disney one, the kid gets on the spaceship. And you have the last Starfighter. Point is, you have a bunch of these positive narratives of UFOs helping us. Right. And you also have these narratives of the UFOs trying to annihilate us. And so you have to choose which one you're going to believe. But if you go through, so that's why people can get confused, like, well, the movie's hurting us, or how, the G.I. Joe validates us. Well, that's because you got the dark and the light on that side of the fence too. And instead of making a podcast, they're making a movie to enlighten you or lower your vibration. So I wanted to let everybody know, the Freemasons, it's not all or every. There's good people in high, powerful positions that are spreading the good news in different ways too. And so, that's something we have to realize because, he's a Freemason, he's bad. Not necessarily. I
had to learn that. I tell this story a lot in the beginning of my journey because essentially I attract, when I talk numbers and spirit, I attract QAnon and the Freemasons. I thought Freemasons built houses. I had no idea what a Freemason was. Like that was just my initial interpretation. And then, people would take pictures and they would do these hand symbols and things like that. But they weren't bad people. It was like a strange thing. But I also understand that even these occultist knowledge and secrets and organizations, you do have the darkness and the light in there. And a lot of the people are being used from what I've seen, just like Q, is they use people that are tapped in, that are very highly intelligent, and they take them on this path of being able to do things. But at the same time, the problem I had recently was when you see all the astronauts. And now anybody who can read intuition, if you've ever seen, okay, let's just take it at face value. Like, okay, did they land on the moon or not? After they did the interview at NASA and Johnson Space Center, when you read the body language of all the guys who landed on the moon, and then you learn that they were all Freemasons, like there is that fraternal part of maybe it was for the greater good of society that we didn't expose the simulation or the matrix at that time, and it was for a bigger purpose. But I just, to me, to be a part of any group at this stage of the awakening other than God, it just doesn't make sense for me. To call yourself a Republican or Jewish or Christian, Christ consciousness, like if you truly if you're on the timeline of I'm God incarnate, co-creating with God, I'm not,
right.
co-creating.
I got you.
Then I'm all colors, I'm all races.
That's what Jesus is doing.
So when you're on that timeline, I get people that are still, it's like a brotherhood or
they're
whatever.
doing a 3D.
It's a very,
they're fighting the dragons.
It's a very 3D thing.
You can't get people to stop playing their game, dude.
I just had this conversation last night with my buddy in Vegas, and we just had this conversation. He was saying, I completely understand your side of things, because I told him there is no good or bad. That's an opinion. Like literally, what I do, some people may think is bad, or vice versa.
And having that point of view, it's just to limit your judgment, right?
It is,
because it's a universal law that the master teaches us. We don't want to judge people, right? We're gonna love your enemy.
That's right.
So in order to think that your enemy is doing something bad, is to start judging that. You can't love a person doing that.
Right.
So just to give more context to, there is no good and bad.
Right.
In the sense of the statement, the order,
right,
is to love your neighbor and to love your enemy.
That's it.
Okay, that's a command. There is no sometimes, or if they're starting to get better. Okay, so if Jonah has to love his neighbor and love his enemy, what does that look like? It looks like him going, hey, look, when he's pushed into a position to make a decision, you're talking to a friend that maybe not, as far along as you are, and you're just trying to go, hey, look, I'm trying to take the purple pill road. I'm just going to take the middle road.
That's it.
So there is no good and evil, to limit the judgment of the enemy.
Right.
Obviously, you know the difference between good and evil, right? But at the same time, we're not in that guy's shoes. We're not supposed to, maybe he had to experience all that. He has to be MS-13 and do all these things to go to jail in order to hit rock bottom, in order to be able to get the awakening, right?
That's very much a part of it. And this is why I stopped judging people, because, and this, again, this is the conversation I just had, is that if people want to jump in and fight all the negative timelines of child trafficking, you could fight. There's an infinite amount of things that we see wrong in this world. It's ultimately going to lead you back to you, because your peace is probably worth more than it's an anxiety thing. It's a stress thing of just learning that, like your neighbor. But one thing I did learn on this journey is that whatever complexes we have, whether it's transgender, whatever, something that bothers you, the Matrix is going to feed it to you.
Give you more.
They're going to give it to you more and more until you can finally either get over it, or
some of the Christian acquaintances I have will start talking about whether it's whatever triggers it. A lot of times it's gay and transgender thing. And I'm thinking in my mind the whole time, going, well, the more you resist it, the more it will persist. That's a universal law.
Yep.
The more you resist, the more it will persist. So then they ask questions like, I wonder why we're seeing more now. And I'm just going, yeah, I know why we're seeing
You're
more.
manifesting
Because you won't give it up.
Yeah.
Because you won't give it up.
Right.
Because you won't stop hating. You won't start loving. You won't start accepting.
That's right.
That God is in control.
Yep.
And that everything is going to be turned for our good. Not some things will be turned for our good. Not sometimes. No, it will be. But you have to help make that decision with him.
This is the really wild part about the transgender subject, is that everything is happening for our highest good. Now, when you think about it, okay, we have some people incarnated to be men, some people incarnated to be women, but all these things are just getting you to see that we're just a soul in a body. That essentially we have male parts or female parts in this lifetime,
absolutely.
But at the same, you are a soul and an avatar, and so to judge somebody for what they do, it's just it's loosening the reins on your perception of reality. To
give you to validate what you just said, okay? If Jesus says love your enemy, right? Then what's the controller's response going to be? They read the Bible too,
right?
So if Jesus says love your enemy. What is the logical response of the controllers and the Matrix to do? To give you harder and harder enemies to love.
Right.
Right. And what's harder than, for a mainstream Christian or a mainstream Muslim for that matter, right? Or mainstream Jewish, right? They're all, on this kick. So what's going to be harder? Well, that's going to be the hardest enemy to love. It's easier to love the guy that's going to point a gun at you.
Yep.
Right? Because at least it's black and white. So by the Matrix throwing the transgender, right? That's going to make it even harder. So it's all a test anyway, right? We should just love that person through and through, the entire idea. So love your enemy. Okay, great. That's what he said. Okay, Joe, let's go. Let's get harder and harder enemies to love.
Right.
You know, in another timeline, it's going to be, they're going to have, you know, dragon heads and goat bodies and smell like shit. And then we have to love them too. You know what I mean? You know, this type of thing.
You hear so many stories about a guy who is like homophobic and then he has a gay daughter, and now they give you that, and so now you have this decision of, do I want to disown? But it can be the same thing with race. And I can remember when I was a little kid being bullied for being mixed. I was called zebra and Oreo, and I used to cry to my mom, and I'm like, why can't I just be one color? Like, you know, it was, but I understand now why I chose that, because you know, the ability to blend in. But at the same time, you know, if our world, like, if let's just say for a second, aliens, the little green men exist. Imagine coming to a place and you see in a society say, you think you're better than him or them. Like, it's the
people
dumbest
looking
thing.
down.
People take too much pride in old programming, just like when people are too much United States or too much their country. Jesus wanted no borders. Jesus wanted no religion. It's the Christ in you. Like, it's being able to teach these principles without the division is a very tricky thing, because people want to say my way is the right way. Well, you're right. Your way is the right way. But how do we come together? And where's the happy medium here?
Right.
There's no competition in spirituality.
Right. My experience has been, they just want to be heard, and they just want to be accepted and heard. And you know what was funny? I had this personal experience with the TV show Survivor. The wife and I like to watch that together. Sometimes we'll let the kids watch it with us too. And anyway, there's this character we really liked. Halfway through the season, it came out the character was transgender, and it changed nothing.
Right.
It changed nothing. And as a matter of fact, it cracked my little brain open even further. I had a job in Hollywood for 5 years, and I was just surrounded by all different types of people. So I was familiar with, you know, gay people give me compliments, all that. It was fine. I was always very flattered, you know?
Yeah.
And then the transgender, I never had any personal experience. I just thought, okay, well, you know, teach their own. However, by having that experience with Survivor and then finding out, it really, for a minute, I had my cultural triggering, like, engage. And I realized, well, what am I going to do? Not love one of my favorite characters now? Like, who cares? Like, I don't care. Hey, you know what? And so the wife and I said, hey, great job. Where'd you get the hormone? Who's the doctor? I mean, it was a guy. You know what I mean? And it was so cool. It was just a beautiful thing to be able to, and for a TV show to do that for me and allow me to get more in that Christ consciousness of, you know, look, we have the example by the master himself. They have the adulterous woman. The Pharisees throw her on the ground in front of him, and they go, we caught her cheating. We caught her being adulterous. What should we do? Stone her? And he goes, no, you let her go. And they go, oh, what? And he goes, yeah, you know, who he is without sin, cast the first stone. And they all go away in shame. And what does he say to the girl? He goes, go and sin no more. But he doesn't say, go and, you know, you're going to, you know, if you ever do this again, you're gone. You know, he doesn't do this whole shame. He just goes, you know, go and sin no more, meaning she knows what she was doing, right? It doesn't matter about the adult. That doesn't matter. She was hurting somebody else. Right. She was hurting somebody else. That's what being on the wrong path was about. And so anyway, you can apply that adulterous woman to anything that triggers you in that way, you know, and find that forgiveness.
I 100% agree. You know, when you learn these things and you see them as tests, and then it comes to you like, do I want to judge this person? That's really what it comes back to. Am I judging somebody for what they do? But I see it on such a high level where we have these tests in society where you get to identify people and where they're at on their journey. And so when I saw that, it felt like it was one of the policies. And, you know, again, I know politics is low vibe, but I'm just using this example of they were trying to push this, what we felt like was an agenda with the Democrats saying they're going to change the sexes of your kids. Women can compete in sports. They pumped this fear in you that it felt fake. Like I'm like, no reasonable, that's what you're running on. Like people can't afford this and do like, it just didn't make sense. It felt very scripted but this was 100%. A test for people to see, okay, you can see where your neighbor's at and how they feel about things. And these people that call themselves, it's not to judge the Christians or the Muslims, but it's understanding when you have these people that don't love people, or that or hate you because of what you identify
Right.
as. But it's also recognizing the psyop of some people are feeling like actors that are doing these things,
Right.
that they have an agenda too,
Yeah.
where they're saying, oh, this one's sticking for a little bit. Let's just really shove it down their throat.
You know, just and you see this a lot when you're a teenager. The first thing you want to do is push buttons,
Right.
right? So if you just want to push buttons and you're not getting anyone to bite, maybe you'll say, "Well, I'm transgender and I want to compete in the women's basketball just to be a dick."
Right.
You know, because any
That's
real
a very real
transgender does not want to compete with you know what I mean? It's just a false narrative.
It is a false narrative.
Even if it's less than 1% of any, but that's all they put on the TV though.
This is one too, and this might not be a popular one, but I just seen this recently. Did you hear about Red Note and TikTok? You know how TikTok went down?
Yeah.
And Red Note is the Chinese
yes,
app.
yes,
And so
yes.
there was an influencer who came on and he said, because people were like all of a sudden talking about LGBTQ.
Okay.
And the guy comes on and he says, just be gay. Like they and I understand that maybe some people have struggled in their families or things like that, but the need to feel that one group is better than the other and force things down people's throat. You just be you. Like
Right.
why do you have to be anything other than you? Obviously you can be what you want, but we've been programmed so much as a society is this is how you get attention. Attention is love.
Right.
And they get this digital dopamine hit.
Yeah, and then
that,
now they're
oh,
reading
they're
the
liking
script.
it. It's a script and a program. They fall under this spell, and that's not real love.
Right.
And when you really like you just said, the people that are really trans don't act that way,
Right.
and the people that are really gay don't act that way.
No.
They just live their life. Like
Yes.
they don't feel the need.
The only
to-
time you see these anomalies is through the media.
That's right.
Through the Black Mirror.
That's
When
right.
When the TV's off, you can see your reflection. That's the Black Mirror.
That's exactly right.
I wanted to go over to this post that you did, it was this old woman, and she had all these old maps. And she was breaking down how the equator doesn't match over here, and the United States continent should be over here. And basically, the long and the short of it was the Earth wasn't round. That I think she was into that it was flat, and then your comment was, that you're more of the gist of it was whether it's round or whether it's flat. What I got was that the bottom line is we don't know.
right.
Right? We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to just expand on that a bit, right? I've been kind of following that a bit too, right? These two, another case of the warring factions, right? Yeah. You got the globe people, you've got the flat earth people. They're both
Overly committed, man. They just can't let it go. It's so funny because I was with 3 flat earthers last night, and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is the Matrix. So
yeah, and it's a cool narrative.
it is.
It's super cool.
And if I had to pick a side, I would be 90%, but I'm never going to be 100% anything.
Oh,
And
because we got to.
I think it's a combination. But the argument that I would have for flat earthers is that if you go back to old texts and old narratives and old books and all these things, they would say that you would be sailing or in a boat and you would fall off like a cliff.
Yeah.
And so to me, okay, they have seen the edge of the Truman Show because there's all these no-fly zones that they don't fly over the North Pole.
Yeah.
They don't fly over the South Pole. So when I look at these things, I tell myself, okay, it actually probably could be flat, but I use the expression flound. Like flat,
like that.
like it's a combination. It's not one thing, and I don't want to commit to it because people just go silly with it.
Well, no, because it's going to turn into red versus blue again.
It's like whether you're right or wrong. Why does it matter?
Yeah, but I want to use that as a springboard, though, for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that since belief is our currency, and that's what creates reality, and we create our own individual reality, and then we have the collective reality that we all either buy into. And Tim and I talk about it as if it's the scales of justice, but it's the scales of reality. And so you take the collective, and the more people that believe in the Matrix 3D belief system, your reality reflect that. Lately, it's because of the Holy Spirit, because we've all been going these spiritual awakenings. Lately, it's starting to balance out, and sometimes it tips over in ours. And then you have the Mandela effect. Lots of different things change. You have Terrence Howard, 1 minute he's
One times one.
Well, listen, 1 minute he's just a good-looking actor, and the next minute he's freaking Nikola Tesla.
Yeah.
And it's a different version. I mean, that's a total Mandela. Dude, that is a Mandela effect. This guy, I've seen interviews before, but I don't want to get off on that. So I'm going to try to validate this somewhat, okay? So in regards to flat Earth, okay, we don't want to get in the red and the blue. But if we just take, first off, we get Lakota tribe, which you just had some experience with the Sweat Lodge and stuff. So the ancient, the native peoples before us all believed in a flat plane, okay? And then all the cosmologies of all the spiritual disciplines believe in a flat plane. And we have here in the Bible, right? We've got Isaiah 40:20, the earth is a circle, right? And then in Proverbs, made with a compass. And then in Genesis, laid upon a face. And then in Job, which is bounded. And then also in Job, at its ends, it does not move in the Psalm, and is covered by a dome in Genesis, containing the sun, moon, and stars in Genesis, which are revolving in Enoch, and above and below is water in Genesis. Okay, so we've got that. And that's pretty definitive, right? And the native tribes also subscribe to this basic idea. You can look it up on Google Images. You'll see it's 95% similar regardless of the spiritual discipline. All right. Set that aside for a minute. Now we've got the globe, and it's a pretty nice idea. And it makes me feel safe, and it's what I grew up with. And I don't want to let go of that either, because so many people I love understand that reality. And it could break people's brains, right? If that were ever. So what I want to do is see if we can just say, in order to get to bring the kingdom to heaven, the 5D, to actually see and interact with it, which we're getting close, we're going to have to reject almost every belief system that they've given us. Mm-hmm. And this is going to be one of the hardest ones. But I think the way we can do it is if we just say, whether it's flat or whether it's round, we don't know. But I think what the cool thing about either one is that, do we really know the limits? Do we really know the limits? So let's say it's round. Well, it can be round, but let's say it's 100 times bigger than what they tell us it is. Mm-hmm. Then how much land is there that we haven't seen? Like, so we look at a globe and we say, oh, they tell us it ends here. But are you and I ever going to go to that point and try to go beyond that point to see if there's more? Mm-hmm. No. And people have tried on YouTube, and guess who shows up? The man with the badge. Mm-hmm. And they won't let you go past a certain point. So the point is there's no way to ultimately verify what they're claiming is true, whether it's round or flat. And I think the interesting thing is, I can't imagine that God, universe, he is in me, I am in you, you and me, would ever make something that isn't just everlasting, ever evolving, and goes on infinitely.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you there. When even the firmament, I believe that space travel, a lot of people say, oh, space is water, or it's made in a Hollywood basement, like the song Californication. Yeah. That could be true, but in my reality, that space is a real place, but we also exist in a firmament. And the way we get out is through portals and through dimensions and through consciousness. And I believe, you mentioned the Native Americans. What was interesting to me is that all the tribes, the most people that go missing in the United States are on national forests or national parks and on Indian reservations. And that's because people live inside of the earth. This is how I know that the reptilians and grays are very real. They don't call them reptilians and grays. They have like their native tongue and their native slang where they say, and they have contracts with these beings that they're not allowed to be outside at night. So that's why they have that. We have our time up on the surface during the day. They have their time at night. So if you get caught slipping, that's on you. So understanding that is God, source, creation, creator, created this plane for us, and Earth is basically a showroom for the cosmos. This is a school. This is the Earth school, and it's the hardest density. And for me, it does go on forever. But at the same time, I do believe, I believe my belief system is that we're already on Mars, that our technology,
That's right.
where our technology is so far advanced that they don't want to tell the general public because people's systems would crash. What we don't know is the reasoning behind it. And the example I always used to give was Japan. I remember back in like 2000, they had color cell phones, which we didn't get this for like, everything is like 20 years advanced in other parts of the world, but we get it like way late because of capitalism.
Right.
So in understanding that this infinite plane, it's whatever you want it to be. I do believe because of Admiral Richard Byrd and,
Yes.
and going
Look
beyond the
this
ice
up,
wall.
people.
Yeah, Admiral Richard Byrd. You know, they found his diaries, which eventually got destroyed. But he went and did talk shows, and he said, "Yeah, we went down there.
You can look those up on YouTube.
4,000 people. He went on and led an expedition, and then crafts were coming out of the earth, out of the earth.
I've read it.
Yeah. So when you hear these things, and you have things that you can refer to at that time, because they try to wash away these things and eliminate those memories. Because once you believe, like you said, the greatest currency here is belief. They need us to believe certain things,
They have
which
to.
is why I understand, even with politics, everything has to happen exactly the way it's happening. And it sounds crazy because a lot of the things we don't agree with.
Right.
But it's all designed to jar people's consciousness.
Right.
They have to trigger every single person on this earth to now get a universal belief system on what is real and what is not. And then now, this is why when I talk about star seeds or star people. With the Lakota, we had such a great conversation yesterday about the star people and star beings and Pleiades and all these things that I've been talking about for 3 years. And now I get to hear it from the source of the elders. But even if it wasn't true, we've manifested it to be true. We've seen all these pictures in caves.
Which makes it true. I mean, it is
It
true.
makes it true. We
Yeah.
we have brought it to life because enough of the collective conscience believes. So that's why I'm not, if we can all focus and say, okay, I'm not going to listen. We none of us really listen to negativity too much in our life, but in terms of consumption of content or information as it comes, if enough of us stop believing negative things and we focus here, there won't be natural disasters anymore. There won't be these things.
There won't be
need
sickness.
us. They need us to believe.
We have a saying here on the show that in the Old Testament people lived to be 800, 900 years old, 1,000 years old. And so the question was, how people back in ancient days, how they lived to be so old. And then you say, well, no, how? It's because no one told them they couldn't.
That's it. I love
No one
that.
told me they couldn't.
I love that. So Prince, Prince, the
Yeah.
music artist, Prince said, they asked him one time how old he was, or they asked him something about his birthday. And he said, you only have one birthday.
Right. Right.
You
Yeah.
have one birthday. If you told somebody their age, they're now, that's
here we go.
yeah, you're already starting the aging process where, as you start to awaken, you stop thinking about these landmarks.
We have another saying, how I know we live forever? How? Because the only funeral you ever go to is somebody else's.
Ooh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Let's go.
I like that.
So that brings me up to another thing, was this idea of truth. And I had a download. Holy Spirit can be funny sometimes, I wrote it down. And it said, truth, right? The truth. People are like, well, what's truth? If you have to ask if it's true, it's probably not. You know truth when you hear it instinctively, which, perfect example, the two things I just said, right? Another one, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, the golden rule. You just know that's true.
Right.
You know that's effing true right away. I just read out of these random books. As soon as I was done, you knew it was true.
Right.
You know the truth.
Right.
As soon as you hear it. And if you're wondering if it is, then it's a lie. Right? And I want to get in, you did the post on consent. You
Right.
did the post on fear. So one of the, cardinal rules of the show is that if it's fear, I don't care who's telling it to you. If it's your mom, your dad, the TV, Instagram, whatever it is, it's a lie. As
Right.
soon as they say fear, as soon as they instills fear in you, the aliens are, it's not that they're demons, it's Satan, it's the Antichrist, all that, it's a lie. As soon as they have to go to the fear card, it's a lie.
Right.
You wouldn't have to go to the fear card unless you're trying to sell somebody a bag of chips that nobody wants. You know what I mean? Fear is, because he says, do not fear. Do not, the scriptures say, do not fear, all the time.
I think that's like the number one
It's
phrase
like
in the entire Bible
Yeah,
is
it
do
is.
not fear, do not fear.
Yeah, we looked it up. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. It's said more times than so. Therefore, they read the Bible too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if it says that more times, then we got to get them to fear.
Right.
We got to get them to fear because now when you fear, you believe something,
Right.
right? So now you believe it. Now we put them on their pedestal. They get all the they get to water ski in Dubai, and you and I are making working at the warehouse in Anaheim.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's the whole thing. If it's fear, so that's it, guys. If it's fear, it's a lie. Period. You know the truth when you hear it.
That's 100%. Even when you think about how many times most of us were worriers our whole life, we worried about everything, worried about how am I going to pay this or how am I going to do this or how am I going to, and 99% of the time, the thing that you worried about didn't happen. It's crazy that you just make yourself sick with it. And then the one time that it might have happened, you're like, oh,
I knew it.
I softened myself for the blow.
Well, no, I knew it.
Yeah.
Oh, no shit. No wonder it happened. What do you mean I knew it?
You made it
Yeah, no
happen.
kidding. I knew it.
Yeah.
That's fucking terrible. And it goes against the command, right? So Sermon on the Mount, the number one first thing he says is, I do not worry about what you will eat or what you will wear.
Have you had, let me ask,
What?
Have you had to, we talked about friends and family. Have you had to let people go that were consistently negative or push fear-based narratives on you? Did you have people that were at a frequency that obviously we love everybody, but you also have to protect your peace? That is a part of the awakening, is not being attached to anything or anyone. And that's a very hard thing for people to wrap their head around.
You have those friends that just, it's like a dog on a bone.
Yeah.
They won't do it. So that's why, you say you don't watch football a lot. However, in my experience, football is the great equalizer amongst all, right? I got to take a break from this. I got to clock out sometimes, right? So that's why I hold on to my Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
I hold on to my concerts.
Yeah.
I hold on to a little bit of this different, I hold on to my steak.
Brother,
You know what I'm saying?
That's the funniest thing is that
But
the whole goal is to awaken up. You can do anything.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm like anti-sports.
No.
I actually enjoyed
You're
the last
busy.
couple of weeks of play. No, the last couple of weeks I watched the Rams game the other day.
Yeah, playoffs are great.
Same, really strange, random one, but ran into Shia LaBeouf.
Oh, you did?
The other
Oh
day.
yeah, he's great. The famous actor.
Yeah, but he's kind of in his own way a rebel, in his own
Oh,
right.
he
But-
is. He's kind of like a James Dean.
yeah. So, but understanding basketball, football, base, I can watch anything for a period of time. I'm just not vested in the storylines
you're
anymore.
right. I'm not gonna-
I got my heart
You're
broken
right.
with wrestling when WWF when I was a kid.
Oh yeah, me too,
And
dude.
I had
I loved Hulk Hogan.
Ted DiBiase, Virgil,
Yeah.
the $1 Million Man, okay, and then Big Boss Man. We were in the airport. I was with my mom, and then I seen these guys that just fought the night before having a beer together, and I'm like, what the hell? I thought, and then that's shortly after it came out that they, and so. When you understand that life is really a script, and I want to recommend to anybody listening to this and the people that are still watching the TV timeline, if you watch the documentary of Vince McMahon on Netflix, it is absolutely like it describes our reality because even Donald Trump's in there and he's in the Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Oh, how funny.
And Vince McMahon has this one line where he says, I understood that being the villain sold more tickets and evoked the emotion. That's when his character arc. So he would create these villains, and they don't need you to be mad at them or dislike them. They want you to hate them.
Yeah.
And so Trump followed the same
in a coded
script.
way. He's telling you
Yes.
it's not about wrestling.
No,
it's about the
that's
it's about
our
the control
reality.
system.
They
I get
need you. They need a villain so bad. They need you to trigger people, but some people are going to love you because remember,
Yeah.
it's all choice.
Yeah.
So, but if you're going to be good at it, be all the way good at it.
Yeah.
And then that's how you accumulate energy, and that's how you can push narratives of if you don't do this, this is what's going to happen.
Right.
We need you. If you don't do this, if you don't sign this, you better
Yeah.
get this crypto. You better get this. You better. It's
always need something.
They
Meanwhile-
got it. They have to. You have. It's our government's role as our opponent, as this Squid Game. It's
As the Roman soldier that's arresting the master.
That's it.
They have to do what they're supposed to do. Yes, I have had to cut people off that were just like a dog on a bone with the negativity. They
Right.
won't give it up. I can't change their mind. And even when I just want to, so I tried, I'll just go pop culture with them. I'll go football with them. I'll try something. And even then they'll steer it back to, it's not the same as it used to be.
Right.
They have, there's like messages on the helmet now, but it's like really cool stuff like love wins and love your neighbor. It's like the teachings of Jesus on their helmet, and
Right.
the person is complaining about it. It's
That's
changed.
woke.
It's
That's
not like,
woke.
yeah, that's
It's
woke
too
now.
woke.
Oh, loving your neighbor is woke.
Yes.
Like, are you going to church on Sunday? Like, I think you are.
Yeah.
So I've had to cut, I didn't tell him I'm not talking to you anymore. It just, not as many phone calls, not as many texts anymore. And then I had one that started coming around that was really doing that whole thing, that negative kind of psychosis. Mm-hmm. And over time, he has really, he's like you and me now. I mean,
Right.
we talk about, he finally started connecting it. I would point it out, and then he would start connecting it. And the less energy he gave to these things, it went away. And I made a good point with Tim and my wife too, when the COVID thing was happening. And that's when I really had my awakening. I said, we're going to make it go away. We're going to do X, Y, and Z and not believe it and just not consent. And you had a post on consent the other day, and we did an episode not too long ago, but that is major. That is major. If you're watching, and so I did that for a couple of months. I would watch the TV news would be on, and as they spoke, I would say, I do not consent. I do not consent to that. I do not consent to that. I do not consent to that. No, you won't. And I was just verbally, and to just get my subconscious keyed into this thing and trained. And guess what? And I told you that when I first met you, boom, COVID went away.
Yeah.
But I had predicted it beforehand.
Right.
Now the 3D is going to always have another thing I wanted listeners to know, when you manifest, when you decide to opt out of the game or transcend the game, the 3D will always send you rationalizations for why that. It wasn't you.
Yeah.
It wasn't because you changed your beliefs. It had nothing. It was just because it didn't make sense to have the QR codes to walk into the grocery store anymore. Oh, really? Because they already were starting to implement. I mean, it was, Biden was on the TV going, it's going to happen. You just wait and see, trying to sell everybody to get our beliefs. We rejected. And so it didn't happen. But the 3D is always going to try to rationalize whatever spiritual experience you're having. Try to rationalize with, no, logically this happened. The fire ring you saw on the way over here wasn't because you were going to meet with Cody and have this, great show. It's because X, Y, and Z. And the Bible's a lot like that too. Like the scripture I read to you, I give you authority over the enemy and all his powers. Now that's going to destroy the church's message of you're not worthy and suck your thumb and pray for death. Right.
Right.
So immediately I go to my study notes. Like I broke out my Bible, my physical Bible, and I go to, cause I just had a sneaking suspicion. Right. So I go to that verse and I go to the study notes, and sure as shit, the study notes are like, that's not what he meant. That's not what he meant at all. You have no authority. He was talking about just the 12 disciples. Like, what, dude? Like, anytime you find a positive thing in the Bible, just like go to the study notes, and it's just like reading New York Times for anything that's positive. It's like full blown. Just no, they didn't mean it that way. That's not what it means. You are not worthy. You are you are a sinner, and you are done. Suck your thumb and pray for death.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's so funny. So, decoding this stuff with you, and the consent is huge. When you consent to anything, right? If we consent to the chemtrails hurting us, here's a good one. My kids, I got 3 of them. We didn't vaccinate them for till they were 8, 9, 10. But the main thing, and the wife homeschooled the whole thing. And so she started getting to the end of her rope with the homeschool thing, right? It's just, as they get older, it's just a lot, dude. And so I could see she was getting exasperated. I had the spiritual awakening, and Holy Spirit told me, like, there's nothing to fear. Like, you don't fear anymore. Mm-hmm. So you can do that. If it's a requirement of the school, then just get it, because it's not going to do anything.
Right.
Right. So I told her that I'm going to make this decision, and she was still with the belief system of they can hurt you, which if you give power to it, they can.
Right.
However, I was just trusting in Scripture. I give you authority. Mm-hmm. So he gives us authority. If I give that authority to science, now something can. If I give that authority to this idea, then it will. Mm-hmm. So I took that authority back, and the kids have never been better. And now they're in school, and she has more free time, right? She has to do self-healing. So that's a good example of this consent idea that you had posted about on your Instagram. You're like, do not consent.
It's because it's spell casting. And when you really recognize the spell casting coming through, again, going back, it all works off belief. So if you believe that a vaccine can hurt you, then it will hurt you.
One of the last things I wanted to bring up was you did the Kanye West post, which I really like Kanye. I think maybe we have a new version of him now, and he says some things that maybe trigger some people, but overall his journey has been inspirational in a lot of different ways. Nobody's perfect, right? But you did a post with Kanye West, and all these synchronicities were happening, and you were shook. Like in this video, I just went back to it today, and you're not finishing your sentence, you're cutting yourself off. Like it was so punk rock. You're like in your sweat, you're just wearing Astros, and you're like getting it. You had just gotten the download, and you had just made these connections, and you were just looking, and like if it wasn't me watching, I don't know if I'm just like, oh shit, like I got it as it was happening. And I'm like, oh shit, he's going down. The songs are speaking to him. And like, it was like full blown. That song's about you. The way you broke it down.
It was a channeling.
It was nuts.
The fact that it was 4 minutes and 55 seconds, which is the first 3 digits of my social security number. He wore a Houston Astros jersey, and I'm from Houston. And I own the exact same jersey that I did never watch that video till I was on the journey. And then I was in Bermuda. And when I made that video, that was from 3 years ago. I made that video 3 years ago, and the opening monologue of that talks about, basically Jesus, how, so the world could feel his pain. Right. I died so the world can feel his pain. And then when you walk through, the whole song is about people dying and not knowing that they're dead. Vanilla Sky, and you got Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg. And then even the timestamp on the video, or the date, I can't remember what it was, 5/17. Yeah. I used to own a bar called 517 Bar.
Shut up.
It was so detailed. And even at the end, they were in the number 22, 0010112. I can go back and watch that video and still see parts of it. And then the fact that he died on the operating table. I died.
Right.
It was like all these synchronicities, and but if one of the things, all his albums are coded. And,
yes.
And the thing is that I was having dreams about Kanye before my awakening, and I'm like, okay, why am I okay? It was crazy. And so then my mom bought me Yeezys for Christmas, which was really random.
I love those shoes. I got a couple.
Yeah. And then he came out with the Donda album on August 29th. 2021, and the number 7 song was Jonah.
Oh, now, shut up! I can't. I'm gonna run out the street. I'm gonna jump off a bridge.
I'm telling you,
it's too much. Are you here right now? I'm starstruck.
Oh, let's go again. The number 7 song was Jonah, and it was based off a kid named Jonah Ware who had gotten killed, a rapper, in 2020. And he wrote this song.
Jonah Ware.
He dedicated it to him, but it came out on 8/8. I mean, I'm sorry. He died on 8/8, which is the Lionsgate portal, and I was 8 pounds and 8 ounces when I was born.
Oh my God! Whoa!
Come on, man!
Dude,
what? You want to tell me it's scripted?
Right?
By the way, this one just popped up, but I've only done 3 in studio podcasts. This is the second one.
Oh,
okay. The last one I did, his name was Cody. The one you watched.
That. Yeah,
I was like, come on, man.
People named Cody. I couldn't believe it when that happened. I'm like,
this is before I met you.
Right. Oh yeah, because it was back.
I did that at the beginning of November.
What a trip!
I'm telling you.
Okay, and on the back, to follow up with that on the Kanye and the song. Remember, and I already said Psalms translates to songs. That's how God talks to us.
His sons. He has a son named Psalm.
Oh.
He has a son named Psalm.
Kanye does?
He has a son named Psalm.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So okay, Tim and I we came across this. All right, and this is a fucking trip, dude. You know that song in this new timeline. This is the Mandela, I swear. So the Mandela effect. So Bob Marley and the Wailers. Mm-hmm. Everyone loves them. Mm-hmm. Who doesn't, right? Get Up, Stand Up. Right? This protest song. Mm-hmm. Right? Just right off the bat. This song is about protesting the government, protesting the control system, protesting. Is this your general knowledge
Absolutely.
of the song? Okay. Me too. And so Tim and I were on the show, and we pull it up, and we started looking up the lyrics, dude. Listen to this.
I'm ready.
Here we go. Get up, stand up for your right. Get up, stand up for your right. Okay, then, verse 1. Preacher man, don't tell me heaven is under the earth. I know you don't know what life is really worth. It's not all that glitter is gold, and half the story has never been told. So now you see the light. Say, stand up for your right. Come on. That seems strange. Get up, stand up for your right. Most people think great God will come from the sky, take away everything and make everybody feel high. But if you know what life is worth, you would look for yours on earth. And now you see the light. You stand up for your right. Get up, stand up for your right. We're sick and tired of your ism and your schism game. Die and go to heaven in Jesus' name. Lord, we know and we understand Almighty God is a living man. You can fool some people sometimes, but you can't fool all the people all the time. So now we see the light. We're going to stand up for our right.
That's mind blowing.
Holy shit.
Mind blown.
So it's get up, stand up for your right to be a son of God.
Right.
To be the I am. To be Jonah.
Yeah.
I am Jonah. That means God is God Jonah. I am. God's name is I am. I am Jonah. I am Cody. I am Tim.
Yep.
Get up, stand up for your right. And you know, one of my downloads was get up off your knees, Christians.
Yep.
Get up, stand up for your right to be divine, to be a son of God.
That's mind blowing. Can I read you one?
Yeah.
Okay, I got one for you. This is Prince. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I don't know. Do you remember the song "I Would Die for You"?
Yes.
Okay. If you pull up the lyrics to "I Would Die for You," okay. And it's 5:17 as I pick up the phone.
No.
I swear to God.
17's a big one for me. My
I just-
Master
that
Chief,
was- I had
John
to-
117. That's the character's name.
Okay.
That's
okay.
that, he's all over the place.
Oh
Yeah,
my God,
right?
this
Okay.
guy. Here we go. I'm not a woman. I'm not a man. I'm something you'll never understand. We just talked about the transgender thing.
Oh,
we,
what?
we are a soul in a vessel. I'm not a woman. I'm something
That's
you'll
true.
never understand. Okay. I'll never beat you. I'll never lie. And if you're evil, I'll forgive you by and by. Forgiving everyone, right? And then here's the chorus. You know, I would die for you, darling. I would die for you. I'm not your lover. I'm not your friend. I'm something that you'll never comprehend. Okay. No need to worry. No need to cry. I'm your Messiah, and you're the reason why. It's right here. I'm telling you.
Every song on this timeline is about the master and awakening.
Here we go again. The bridge. You're just a sinner, I am told. Be your fire when you're cold. Make you happy when you're sad. Make you good when you're bad. I'm not a human. I'm a dove. Jonah means dove in Hebrew.
What?
I'm your conscience. I'm love. All I really need is to know that you believe. Come on, bro. Come on, bro.
Okay.
This is what I'm telling you.
Last one, and we'll call it.
Okay.
So I did Bob Marley. You did Prince.
Okay.
I love Prince.
Same.
We love Bob Marley.
You're wearing purple.
Right?
Purple rain.
Okay, Purple Rain, right?
Really quick one. When God cried tears of blood, the red blood hit the blue clouds and made the purple rain.
Oh my
That was his
God.
interpretation.
What?
That was his interpretation.
What?
He was very
Let's
tapped in
go.
spiritually.
Absolutely. So, rock and roll, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the tomb, you roll the rock away and he comes forth. Rock and roll the rock. Rock and roll will save your soul. Roll the rock. Prince, Bob Marley, all the love songs. It's all about rolling the rock and him coming. Rock and roll.
I
roll
love
the
that.
Rock,
I love
roll
that.
the rock away.
Yeah.
And he's
love
the master's the only character, the only entity through all spiritual disciplines that all spiritual disciplines recognize on some level.
Yeah. I mean, in Islam, he's called Isa. Okay. And obviously Yeshua in Hebrew, right? Iosis, I believe it's in Greek. Like he has a name in every language. He's universally.
The Hindus love him. They think he's top 5 of their 1,000 guys.
The Native Americans talk about story. This is why I don't jive with everything that we're being told, because remember, he went missing.
Right.
Okay. I believe either there were spacecrafts or something took him.
The Bible says he went into the spacecraft with the Pleiadians.
100%.
He did. He went with the Pleiadians.
He was a Pleiadian starseed.
You went with the. He was, because you go in the Native American. We could look at, if this was a lie, you could have picked any star system, right?
Right.
And so you went to the Native Americans and they talked about the Pleiadians, right?
Yeah. Yesterday.
Okay. Well, guess what? Well, the Pleiadian star system is very big in the Bible.
Yep. It's huge.
It's the only one they mention.
It's
the only one they mention.
Yep. That's
Okay?
exactly right.
And then the Pleiadians are supposed to be, with the long white hair and all that stuff. And then when Jesus goes into the craft, when he finally ascends, there's 2 guys on either side of him with the white hair, and they're the Pleiadians.
Right.
And we did a whole episode on the UFOs and going into the cloud and the UFOs of Ezekiel. It's all there. And it's all happening. And it's all because of you and me and Tim and the Holy Spirit that's awakening everybody. Get ready for your awakening, everybody. because it's going to happen. The fastest hitting rock bottom is the fastest way to the top.
I don't recommend hitting rock bottom, but unfortunately, that dark night of the soul is a woolly booger. But that's the fact that you're right. You have to, when you lose everything, you gain everything.
Right.
It's a
whether
crazy
it's
thing.
intellectually, whether it's physically, whether it's monetarily, everyone has a bottom, and that's when the kingdom will be revealed. It's so good having you. I feel so connected. I always have, but to spend this time with you, for you to share your time with us, it's been wonderful, man. Thank you so much.
I am in gratitude to you, and I appreciate you. And it took us a while to put this together. It was, but it was in divine and perfect timing. And I'm so thankful and grateful for you and Tim for having me. And I truly appreciate you. And this won't be the last time.
Oh, no. I was, whenever we need some greater context, or we want to get back in here and chew the fat,
For sure.
because there'll be a whole other. There's a bunch of stuff in my notes I didn't even get to.
Yeah.
So you're just a wealth of information, and so kind, so kind. Your eyes and the way you look, it's just, it reminds me of my best friend, George. I mean, he's just smiling from ear to ear right now. I just know it. And I can't wait to keep following your adventures.
Appreciate
Everybody,
that.
Book of Jonah on Instagram. And I think you still do TikTok too.
I just started to do TikTok, but I don't want to commit to TikTok. But it's Starseed 1011.
Okay,
is
and
my
you got
TikTok.
the book.
I haven't printed the book yet. I have a book in my drafts. I haven't released it yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're going to start a podcast.
I'm leaning towards it, but
You're so busy, though.
I'm so torn with it because it's. We'll see.
Okay, you know what? If you just want to pop in, we can hold that front down for you. No problem, bro. You can host the show, whatever you want, bro. Mikasa, Sukasa. If you ever need anything, you just text me. Whatever you need whatever it is, brother. Okay.
Same here, brother.
All right. God bless you. Hey guys, thanks for listening. We love you. Purple Pill Podcast.